Now, as you can see, the image looks a little bit funky. We see the outlines of the dark areas or the lines before we see the other areas of the shades of gray. And it's not doesn't seem to be animating or fading in a very uniform way. And the reason is we have our sketch start, our layer below, ends right here at frame 65. What we want to do is keep this sketch start visible during the fade in process so that it'll look like a smoother fade in. So all we do here is we need to unlock this layer. We're going to click out here on the sketched art layer, and in this case, instead of inserting a keyframe, we're just simply going to insert a frame. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and lock that layer again, and let's see if the animation seems smoother. Yeah, that looks better. All right, now let's do the grayscale layer. So let's click here, make it visible, bring our scrubber back to the beginning, click on this frame, and on our grayscale we want to activate it, set the alpha to 0, and it's not letting me do that, and the reason is I've got the layer locked. So unlock our layer. Now we can put the color effect on, so go to alpha, set that to 0. Okay, let's go out to where we want the animation to start, frame 115, insert a keyframe, then forward out to 165, which is another 2 seconds, insert another keyframe. By the way, if you have your functions turned on your keyboard, you can get the keyframe with F6, even though it doesn't say that. Put in a keyframe there. Now activate the image, bring the alpha up to 100, and then click anywhere in between and set our tween. Okay, let's take a quick look at that. So it is fading in, and as you can see, our shades of gray layer below disappears now. So what we want to do is add a frame here for shades of gray. Frame, and we hide our grayscale. We can see that the shades of gray is still there. Okay, one more image layer to do. Let's take our scrubber back to the beginning. Unlock our color layer and change its alpha to 0. All right. Come out to the end of our grayscale animation, which is at 165. So click in there, insert keyframe. Okay, move forward another 50 frames or 2 seconds to 215. Insert keyframe. Activate our image, and then set the alpha to 100% so that it has faded in at the keyframe, and then now put in the tween. Okay. And then the last bit is to extend our grayscale layer so that it's visible up until the end of the fade in for the color. So on the grayscale layer row, we go insert timeline frame. And let's play it all just to have a quick look at it. Click play. Okay, very good. Our still images are fading in nicely. So the next steps will be to take this this color image and animate it some more. We're going to have it zoom out and move a little bit, and then we still have to put the logo and the type in. And before we move on to kind of the second set of this exercise, we're done with the grayscale and the shades of gray layers, so let's go ahead and lock those two layers. We still have the color layer to work with, and let's save the file. To change the size and the position of the sunflower now that it's in color, that's a little bit more of maybe a dramatic animation. So let's slow that down a little bit. So instead of doing a 2-second fade in, let's take about 3 seconds. So that would take us out to 290. So we'll go into 290, and then we'll put in a keyframe. Okay, to change the size and the position of the color layer, we want to activate the image, and then we want to go under Modify, Transform, Free Transform. And then this will be a free transform tool that will work pretty similar to the one in Photoshop. So to constrain the proportions while I scale it, I hold down the Shift key, make it a little bit smaller. Drag it into position here, and I'd like it to be kind of way over here to the corner. I'm going to have to make it a little bit bigger. Hold down the Shift key. Something about like that. And what I wanted to do is open up as much room on this side, so that's where we're going to put our type, and here's where we're going to put our logo. So if that looks pretty good, so now all we need to do to accept the transformation is just click out here, and let's go back a few frames, get into the middle here, and insert our tween. And you can see that it's halfway in position there, so let's just kind of look at what this animation part looks like. So we go back here to the gray bits, let it run, turning to color, and now it starts to move. Great. Excellent. Everything's going according to plan. All right, now let's get to work on the headline. What we want to do is set a headline that says, Creative Strategy Executed Clearly. And we'll have the first part, Creative Strategy, fade in very early in the ad, and the second part, Executed Clearly, will fade in later as the sunflower scenes themselves become more clear. So that's kind of how the concept works. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning here. Let's put in a new layer. We'll call that layer Creative Strategy. And select our Type tool. Let's try Myriad Pro for the typeface. And maybe condensed. And we'll leave that at 18 points. And let's set it right about in here. And I'm going to use the ellipsis, which is Option semicolon, so that you get those 3 dots, but they're all one unit. Now we can move this around into position a little bit if we want to see where it's going to appear with the images. We see that it's going to be occluded by the image a little bit here at the beginning. That's okay, because eventually it's going to, when the image starts to lighten, we'll see it a little bit better. And then when it starts to move, that's about where we want it. Maybe we'll take it over this way just a little bit. Okay, now before we can animate this type, we have to turn it into a symbol. So we select it, do Modify, Convert to Symbol, and we'll call that symbol Creative Strategy, and it's a graphic type symbol. All right, so as you might guess, we're going to set the opacity, or the alpha, for this to 0 at the beginning of the clip. So we select it and go to our color effect, alpha, and 0. So now it's invisible. Let's go out to about, let's say about 100 frames to start the fade in. So at this point we will insert a keyframe, and then maybe another 50 frames, so we have about a 2-second fade in. We'll insert another keyframe, And at that point, select it again, turn our alpha up so that we can see it. Click back in between the two keyframes and tween it. Okay. So that's how that will fade in. Okay, for the second part of the headline then, let's make another layer. Executed clearly. And select our type. And let's make this maybe condensed italic and bump that up to about 24. See how that looks. All right. And kind of move that into position a bit. That looks pretty good. Okay, so again, we want to convert this to a symbol. All right, let's return to the beginning of our timeline and select this, and at the beginning we will set that alpha down to 0 so that that is transparent. Then let's come out to about the point where the color image starts to move. So here's where the color image is fading in. Here about 215 is where it starts to move. So let's put in a keyframe there. And then go forward about 50 more frames, so about 265. Put in another keyframe. Select the object, bump up the alpha so that it's visible, and then put in the tween. And we can see as the sunflower starts to get smaller and move a little bit, then executed clearly comes into view, about how we want it. All right, we're getting close to finishing now. We just need to deal with our logo. So let's move this up a bit. Let's create another new layer for the logo. And in the library panel, let's find our logo. Just Tusky. There we go. And let's have a look at Tusky here. Tusky's pretty big. So the first thing we're going to have to do is scale Tusky down a bit. Actually a lot. Hold down the Shift key to constrain the proportions. I think we want even smaller yet. Yeah, that might be about the right size, so let's move down just a little bit more.